vendor is the fact that the other vendor was in the pole position to work with the government on an exascale supercomputer. They pick us as a system, the government pick us as a system provider, so now we are working with the other vendor to deliver that solution. So in some cases, you have to decide what is the best approach for the customer, and that's pretty normal in our industry. There is certainly CPU shortages because of the transition that we've seen, but we're working with each of them to make sure we can fulfill our demand in a timely manner. And as you know, it's always a process to go through with our supply chain, forecast and planning. But also is a discipline you have to put in place, because sometimes we want to give customers too many choices and too much flexibility. In other cases, this is what I have, and then be able to drive the demand in the right place. Particularly in SMB works pretty well. When you have a large enterprise that have certified systems for a particular workload, it is much harder. But I think we have done a pretty good job so far, and relationships matter in the end, which is something I care deeply.
Okay, we have another question here. Thank you.
Hello, Witold. My name is Witold Kopinski, Dutch teacher and executive people from the Netherlands. Thank you for your time. I got a question. The net promotion score for channel partners grew, is getting higher under your leadership. What's the general message to partners for next year, how to grow with HPA, for example, also with GreenLake, because it's still an indirect business. It's about now 27% indirect, and they also, I think, also partners should also change to become more also as a service companies. And I'm very anxious. Where are the chances for 2020? Thank you so much.
Yeah. A couple of things. We are super proud of the Net Promoter Score, as you pointed out, has increased in the last 3 years steadily. And to give a perspective, our score is twice the amount of score of the second vendor, okay, which is remarkable. It tells you we are here, number 2 is here, is half of the score. And then number 3 is you can guess, right? So that's an advantage, and the reason why is because we have focused on a few things. One is the program. I think we have the best channel program on the market. It's called the Partner One Ready program. The consistency matter, and be able to make the right tweaks as you focus on your strategy and what products and solutions you want to deliver to customers. You make incremental changes, not 1 year you change the whole thing and you confuse the channel. The worst thing you can do is change dramatically your program every year, which is what our competitors have done, particularly the one in Austin, Texas, which has no credibility with the channel. So just to be clear about that. One day you're a channel company, one day you're a direct company. We have been, we are, and will continue to be a channel-led program company, period, end of story. If you meet some of the owners of these channel partners, they will tell you, I've been with HP for 30 years. I built the company with Hewlett-Packard, and I'm proud to continue to be an exclusive partner of Hewlett-Packard and Hewlett-Packard Enterprise. So that has driven us the opportunity. That has given us the opportunity to really drive that consistent approach, and then continue to pivot them with us. Because ultimately, they have the same challenge like any mature company has, is to be relevant in this new reality of mobility, security, cloud, and so forth. And that's why we have what we call the Super 6 program, where we actually have 6 key priorities that we want to drive with the channel. Not 25, 6. And we put our resources and dollars and compensation behind those 6 programs. Whether it's driving intelligent edge, whether it's driving intelligent storage, whether it's driving a composable cloud portfolio, and obviously the consumption-based model is something that obviously we are driving along the way. So we expect the consumption-based model, if you take the 30 to 40% compound annual growth rate, as somebody asked me the question the other day, in the financial analyst community, so Antonio, how much of your revenue will be recurring? And we always give the weird answer, well, do the math, 30-40% of this base against this foundational revenue. Why we don't give the number is actually, it's going to be between 15 and 20%. In Q4, we exit the quarter with an ARR of $462 million. The reality, we have over 750 customers already on GreenLake and a contract TCV value of almost $3 billion. So if you do the math and you do an annualized run rate, you get to the number. So, and what I'm really proud, again, since you asked the question about the channel, is the channel is growing the fastest, because obviously it came from a smaller base, but the adoption and the number of deals and the pipeline is increasing dramatically. In fact, the pipeline through the channel is almost $1 billion just for GreenLake. So this is why the focus on HP GreenLake Central is so critical, because one of the principles I gave to the team is simple, simple, simple. 5 clicks, quote. That's all what you have to do. Versus the previous instantiation has been a little bit more customized. In the end, we have to beat the public cloud experience, which, by the way, is not great, because if you go to one of the public cloud providers, you have a lot of options there. And the question is, which one is the right for you? And ultimately, you don't want to over-provision. You want to provision the right amount of infrastructure and services around it versus over-provisioning and overpaying. And that's why the combination of composable cloud with GreenLake is very unique, because we can provision the right amount of resources and only pay for what you consume. And that's what the channel partners really like. Yes?
Would like to provide IDC. I would follow up on actually this topic. This very topic.
Here's a mic there.
Yeah, I would like to follow up on this topic in terms of reporting to financial to Wall Street.
Yes.
What is for the future? What is the right mix in your mind between infrastructure or traditional product type of selling software, intellectual property, and services?
Yeah.
In terms of services, then project split between and recurring, meaning cloud-based.
Yeah, I don't have a specific target per se. I think it's going to be driven by the customer adoption as we go along the way. But the fact of the matter is that what I see, the trend and the opportunity is massive. And so, there was a gentleman asking me earlier, the financing question. I think it's less about the finances, it's about the ability to adopt these new models in their business model itself. So they have to change internally some of the cost accounting and how to deal with the balance sheet and OpEx related, challenges. But for us, we can drive as high as we want to, and that's what I'm directing the team. If you go back to that vision, we are the edge to cloud platform as a service company, and we made a bold statement that we want to offer everything we do in the company as a service. Eventually, I would like to sell 100% as a service. That's not the issue. The issue is how customers are going to be ready to adopt the model as we go along the way, and it's going to be different by verticals. I understand that, but we think by 2022 we're going to be between that 15 and 20% that we talked before, because obviously the more bookings and the more recurring is going to show up over time. But our goal is to grow the as-a-service model as fast as possible. One component is very important, which we don't talk that often, is the upfront advisory piece of this. So we can help customers define the right hybrid strategy for their business from the apps and data, so that we can help them decide where the data should gravitate, where they should put the app, how they should re-platform the app in a consumption-driven model. And that's something that we can do today, because we have roughly 4,500 employees around the globe that they are specialized to do this type of work. And we have done 2 acquisitions in the last 2 years. One is called the Cloud Technology Partners, and the other one is called Red Pigs in the UK, which are very specialized for cloud, in the cloud space. And that's going to be a very important aspect to drive the pull-through to accelerate this as a service model. But obviously there is the other aspect of the service, which is the attach for the maintenance of this infrastructure. And then obviously there will be potential reselling of other cloud solutions as a part of the GreenLake. because in the end, we take care of them, their on-prem and off-prem experience in trying to optimize their hybrid estate for the best possible outcome. So again, it's going to depend from a lot of things, but generally we said we want the Green Lake to grow 30 to 40% in general with the rest of the consumption-based model, and that's what we give direction to the street. And we also give a direction to the street that we expect the revenue to grow 1 to 3% between 2020 and 2022 as a whole company.
Okay, a question over here?
Well, I'm Rainer from Germany. Given your end-to-end as a service strategy and given that the hyperscalers, or mainly AWS, is moving towards the edge, to what extent and in what ways do you consider hyperscalers not only as a resource providers for the public cloud resources, but also as a future competitor?
Well, it's not a future, it's already a competitor.
Yeah, I mean, as a, say, major competitor, maybe even bigger competitor than the Dells of this world.
Yeah, well, let's talk about competition, let's talk about the edge and how we think about the whole experience itself. So we compete with everybody, that's a fact. We compete on one spectrum with the cloud providers. On the other spectrum, we compete with the traditional OEMs, what is Dell, EMC, Lenovo, and others. And then we have a third competitor that people forget, it's called China. And so we think about those three in our competitive landscape. Then when we think about the aspect of them moving to the edge, we should define what the edge is first and foremost. The edge for us is the place where we live and work. It's not the edge of the data center. And so, in fact, we can argue there is a far, far edge, which is the space, and where we put actually a high-performance computing in space for 18 months. But let's bring it to the earth here for a moment. Is really the far, far edge is the campus. It's like this building. This is an edge, right? This is what the data is created. Look how many PCs and tablets and cameras you have. You are creating an enormous amount of data, sending it, whether storing your device or sending it to the cloud or sending it to your data center. So we saw obviously AWS announced last year, and I believe yesterday announced the general availability of what is called Outpost. And the first message there is, I think they finally recognize the world is hybrid. If you go back and and it looks like they're allowed to say it, because I didn't realize they were not allowed to say it internally, which is like okay, that's kind of interesting, right? But the world is hybrid, and as I said yesterday, apps and data lives everywhere. And so for them to continue to drive that relevancy and growth, they need to bring the cloud to the data. And I said even yesterday, 75% of the data is created outside the data center, is created outside the cloud, and is cheaper and physically more easier to move the cloud where the data is, not where the cloud is. And I made this joke, which is true actually, is what the public cloud really wants is your data. They don't care about your workloads. What they want is your data. And so once you check your data in the public cloud, you kind of lock in. It's like checking in Hotel California. You check in, you never check out. So when you do that, that's the reality, right? And so now, we have, I call it experiments, where they will send you a track, you load the data, and they take the track to the cloud. That didn't work very well. So now they're giving you a tentacle, an extension of the cloud in your own data center. But the reality, they already told you that's going to cost you more, at least 30% more, than moving your data into the public cloud. So it's a way to attract you back to the public cloud. What we want is an open approach, and a true multi-cloud approach, where you have choices, you have the flexibility to move data and apps where it makes the most sense, whether it's for security purposes, whether it's for experience purposes, whether it's for cost purposes. And when you think about the amount of workloads have moved to the public cloud, a lot of workloads have moved to the public cloud, but at production scale, not many. And so this is where they came with this concept of AWS. We believe we have a better approach, in a true open cloud native approach, intelligent, secure. And this is why we announced a unique partnership with a company that's led by my friend, John, John Chambers, that is called Pensando. And in order to deliver that edge cloud experience, you need to implement different architectures. And this is why we made a big investment as a part of the Pathfinder program in his company. We are integrating that technology in our solutions in the context of an edge cloud computing. And that's what we're doing. So I think that's how we see the world, and the reality we have to compete. But in other cases, what we want with HP GreenLake Central is to really bring you a complete experience, no matter where the data and the apps are. And then obviously we have to include the public cloud as a part of that experience, so we can give you control back. We want to put you back in control, because today in the public cloud you have no control. You just move it and then you lose the control.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
Well, I think we
there's one
time
more
for
question there.
One last question here, and then we'll.
She's right, waving there.
Yeah, we're gonna wrap it. But
go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. We'll do, John. We'll do one last question there.
So just a quick one. You mentioned China. I wondered if you'd talk about the joint venture in China and whether that was the right approach, whether that's proved to be the right approach, and whether that needs adjusting, how it's working.
I mean, sometimes I better be lucky than good. I will say it was absolutely the right approach. You know, I always said, you know, when you go back 6 years ago almost, we start seeing the changes in the field. It was not level anymore. The playing field was not level, and we decided to take a different approach, which was bold at the time. You know, basically take your combined assets. We used to have a company called H3C. With our HPE assets, we combined it and we sold 51% to our great partner that we have there, and make it more Chinese, and at the same time continue to work with them to grow the business. And that business has